Friday at 9. You're watching more of where World Cup 94 in 40 minutes follows the news.
ITN Evening News with suchet.
The moment Prince Charles crash-landed the royal plane. After that interview, MPs will discuss the consequences. New delays to the tunnel, France says Britain's to blame. And is this another piece of Becker gamesmanship? Good evening. It's been a day of anticipated controversy but unexpected drama for the Prince of Wales. Controversy over tonight's documentary, drama when he crash-landed a plane of the Queen's flight. The Prince had taken the controls as the plane came in to land on the Isle of Islay. As it touched down, 3 tyres burst and the plane skidded off the runway. The Prince wasn't hurt. Later he said, "It's not something I'd recommend." ITN's Glenn O'Glaser reports from Islay.
An amateur cameraman captured the moment when the jet, piloted by Prince Charles, touched down. Smoke began to billow from its tyres. As these exclusive pictures show, the Prince braked hard, but he hadn't left himself enough room to stop, eventually coming to a halt at a 90-degree angle to the runway. Had the aircraft continued to run straight on, it would have gone into a ditch. It might have broken up, even exploded. Flying conditions today are not bad here. There is a wind, but not strong enough to cause this. Other pilots here say the pilot of this plane must have been flying with a tailwind to come off the end of the runway.
He was rather fast to make the end of the runway. As he got to the end of the runway after a large bang, which may have been a tyre going, the pilot slewed the plane round to the left to avoid getting straight off the end of the runway.
First of all, it came in the wrong way, we thought, because it came in with the wind as opposed to against it. But more than that, it was the speed.
Prince Charles continued with his schedule, visiting a local school. So unruffled by the near disaster, he was able to joke about it.
Wasn't quite a crash. Went off the end of the runway, unfortunately. Only just. It's not something I recommend happening all the time.
The Prince, an accomplished pilot who's been flying for more than 20 years, returned to the mainland by helicopter, abandoning the damaged jet, fortunate to have escaped serious injury. Glenn O'Glaser, News at 10, Islay.
The Prince has been involved in scares before while flying. Today's latest incident raises 2 important questions. How did this one happen? And should the Prince be allowed to fly himself? ITN's Kevin Dunn reports.
Prince Charles is a keen pilot who loves to take the controls for takeoff and landing. Tonight's documentary shows him in the captain's seat on the left of the cockpit, bringing an identical aircraft into land in Mexico at the start of an official visit. The 146 is specially designed for short takeoff and landing. It has an excellent reputation for safety, but in one respect differs from larger jets.
One thing it does not have is a thrust reverser system, which you find on perhaps the big Boeing or the big Airbus aircraft. You have to use the brakes to stop the aeroplane.
So what happened at Islay's Port Ellen Airport? The plane landed on the airport's longer runway at 5,000 feet, more than long enough for a 146. But eyewitnesses say it touched down too fast and too far down. Unusually, it landed with a tailwind, and although it braked sharply, it slewed to a halt just overshooting the end of the runway. Even close examination of the video of the Prince's landing cannot establish whether the tyre burst on impact or under the pressure of braking.
These aeroplanes are fitted with anti-skid devices, so you can apply the brakes fully on without risk, unless you have a problem of the tyres, the wheels locking and therefore skidding and causing a tyre to burst. But the brakes heat quite a bit, and perhaps that's what finally caused the tyres to burst.
Prince Charles won his wings in 1971, flying Phantoms for the RAF. Apart from flying, he's relished physical and potentially dangerous sports such as polo. He is also a keen skier and narrowly escaped death 6 years ago in an avalanche which killed a friend. Today's incident is bound to lead to calls for the heir to the throne to modify his lifestyle, but the prince is unlikely to stop flying. It remains one of his favourite pastimes.
From the drama to the controversy, in tonight's documentary, the prince did, as we said on News at 10 on Monday, say that he had been unfaithful after his marriage had broken down. He spoke too about divorce, saying it wasn't a consideration at the moment. MPs were watching the programme. The Conservative Committee on Constitutional Affairs tonight called a meeting to discuss the implications of what the prince said. ITN's Penny Marshall reports.
Tonight, an estimated 15 million viewers sat in judgment on the man and the monarchy as ITV's long-awaited documentary was screened.
This is the story of the Prince of Wales today. What he does, what he thinks.
The 2.5-hour personal portrait covered both his public duties and private life, including, controversially, his marriage.
Did you try to be faithful and honourable to your wife when you took on the vow of marriage?
Yes, absolutely.
And you were?
Yes. Until it became irretrievably broken down.
Amongst many other subjects, he went on to talk about his friendship with Camilla Parker Bowles, the subject of intense public speculation.
What you said.
Mrs. Parker Bowles is a great friend of mine. I have a large number of friends. I'm terribly lucky to have so many friends who I think are wonderful and make the whole difference to my life, which would become intolerable otherwise. And she has been a friend for a very long time, and along with a lot of other friends, and will continue to be a friend for a very long time. And I think also, most people probably would realize that when marriages break down, awful and miserable as that is, that so often, you know, that it is your friends who are the most important and helpful and understanding and encouraging. Otherwise, you would go start raving mad. And that's what friends are for.
The prince said he didn't think divorce was an impediment to becoming king, but he wasn't considering it at the moment. On other matters, the prince has strong views on national service, which he favours, and he said he believed the monarch's role as defender of faith should cover all faiths. Tonight, the Conservative Constitutional Affairs Committee said it would be meeting next week to discuss the implications of his remarks.
Well, let's say I'm disturbed, because that is the right word at this stage. He's only saying he might divorce. He's only saying he would like to be defender of all the faiths. I think he's a man that sits back and thinks deeply. And unfortunately, sometimes some of his words run ahead of his constitutional commitments.
Meanwhile, this afternoon, at a preview of the film, the journalist behind it, Jonathan Dimbleby, was saying nothing about the project. And afterwards, commentators rushed to pen their differing verdicts.
We haven't made up anything nasty. I mean, he's admitted it.
I think definitely a big mistake to have done it, yes. I think they'll live to regret it.
He complains about cameras being ever present to cameras that he's invited to be ever present.
I would give him for performance 7, but a good job for an amateur. For message, I'd give him 8, and for the film itself, overall, 6.5, too long.
The Anderson family of Sale, Manchester, watched it every minute of it. On the whole, they believed it would do the prince good rather than harm.
Really, because
Sorry.
He didn't have to say what he said.
Well, it's shown that he's only human, and you know, it can happen to anybody really. And at least he's admitted something. If he's not been happy, he's got out of it.
In a poll published in tomorrow's Daily Mirror, 61% said Charles was still fit to be king, and 54% said he was right to admit the affair. Princess Diana, who declined to take part in the programme, was tonight attending a charity dinner while her husband spoke of their past and future to millions. The princess may have chosen to go private, the prince to go public. These personal decisions, so closely scrutinised by the media, can only fuel the debate on the future of the monarchy.
Well, in the